Hey everybody, welcome back to another fun and exciting Algebra 1 class. Today we are going to be on lesson 6.8, and that is on page 195. We are going to be multiplying polynomials by polynomials, okay? So you say, I thought we've already done that. Well, we've multiplied binomials by binomials, and we've multiplied polynomials by monomials. So we've done some of this, but this is kind of like the next stage, the next step. And you'll see what I mean here in just a second. Um, the idea is kind of like distributing and kind of like FOIL mixed into one. And so there's two concepts that you already know how to do. It's just a matter of kind of now taking them and putting them into one function here. So let's look down at the screen. I have x plus 2 times x squared plus 3x plus 7, and I want to multiply those two things together. Well, we learn FOIL, and so we learn firsts, firsts, outers, inners, what's an inner? Maybe that, and lasts. Well, you see some problems here, okay? And one of the problems is that these things aren't really connected too much. These are only connected twice, and this one's connected 2 times. And so, in other words, you can't really do it that way. It's kind of the concept, but it's a little bit different. And then you think, well, you said something about distributing, so maybe I can just distribute that to that somehow. Well, we're going to kind of mix the two, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the first, and we're going to distribute it, okay? Then we're going to come back after we do that, and then we're going to take the second one, and we're going to distribute it. Then once we get them all together, we're going to go ahead down here, and we're going to combine our like terms. So really the steps to this are distribute and combine like terms. Okay, let's try it. Let's see what happens. All right, so I'm going to take my x and I'm going to distribute it. So x times x squared gives me x cubed. X times negative, be careful, these negative signs are still really messing with some of you. Okay, so you've got to be careful of those negative signs right there. So x times negative 3x gives us negative 3x squared. And then x times positive 7 is going to give us plus 7x. Okay, so there's all my x terms. I went ahead and I distributed that one. Now we're going to come back and we're going to distribute the 2. And so we're going to take the 2 to the x, and we're going to get plus 2x squared. Then we're going to take the 2 to the negative 3x. We're going to get negative 6x, because all we have is a 2 times the 3 times the negative 3. And then the last one, 2 times 7 gives us 14, positive 14. All right, and so we're done. We've distributed the x, now we've distributed the 2, and here's our list of terms down here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take these and we're going to combine them, okay, just like we've been combining like terms in FOIL and in other things. So here's what we want to do. 3x, or x cubed. There's no other x cubed, so that one just goes down. And then we would go to 3x squared, and here's an x squared term. And so negative 3 plus 2 gives us negative 1, or just negative x squared. And then we would have, here's an x term, and here's an x term, 7 minus 6, and that gives us 1x, or positive x. And then the only one that we have left here is that 14, and there's nothing to combine it with. So that would be our answer right there. X cubed minus x squared plus x plus 14. And if you want to follow along in your book, we are on page 196. Page 196. I'm sorry, I should have told you that already. We just did the example on the top of the page, example 6.8b. X cubed minus x squared plus x plus 14 is the correct answer. Okay. All right, let's keep on going. Let's go to the next example. This is actually on the next page. They give you an example there of what they call vertical multiplication, and I don't like it. I stopped teaching that about 3 or 4 years ago because it just confuses students. We don't use it in algebra. I don't know why they're teaching it in the book, to be honest. I don't think it's a great concept. I think the best way to do it is by distributing and then combining like terms, since that's what we do in algebra. We don't stack them up vertically like you did in arithmetic. So I think I know what they're doing there, but I'm just not a big fan of it. So go ahead and skip over to the next page. This is on page number 197, page 197. So now we have an interesting situation here. We have a trinomial times a trinomial. Okay, so you're like, wow, what's going on here? We got this times this. Wow, there's lots of terms going on there. There are. But you're going to do the same thing that we just did. All right, so we're going to distribute the x squared first. Okay, then we'll distribute the x, then we'll distribute the -3. So we're just going to take those piece by piece. So let's go ahead, we'll do it this one in green. We will distribute the x squared. So x squared times x squared gives you x to the fourth. X squared times 5x is going to give you positive 5x cubed. Then x squared times -6 is going to give you -6x squared. If you're still struggling with that multiplication, I don't have time to go back and teach it to you here in these videos, so I'm just kind of doing it with the assumption that you know how to do it. If you don't know how to do it, you need to go back in your book and figure out how to do this, because these concepts are vital. You can't do this if you don't know how to multiply terms. All right, so the next one, we'll do it in this blue color, and we have x, and we are going to distribute the x through here. So we're going to get a positive x cubed, and then we're going to get a positive 5x squared, and then we are going to get a -6x, -6x. All right. And now we're going to go ahead and do the next one. We'll do this one in purple. We're going to distribute the -3 through there. So we have -3x squared. I'm getting a little tight here on the corner of the page, but I think I can make it. -15x, and negative gives me a positive 18. We snuck it in there. Look at that. All right, so now I've got everything multiplied out. And now what do I want to do? Well, the second step is, first step is distribute each term. The second step is combine like terms. So we'll come through here and we'll go back to this white color, and we're just going to look for like terms. So let's look for a like term with x to the fourth. I don't see any more x to the fourths, so this one will be all by himself. Then we'll come to this one, and we are looking for x cubed terms. There's an x cubed term, and there's an x. No, that's an x squared. I guess that's it, just two. And so we're going to combine those, plus 6x cubed. And now we'll come to the x squared terms. There's an x squared term, and there's an x squared term. So we have -6x. We're adding 5x right there, x squared. And so we're going to get a -x squared, and then we have a -3. So we're going to have a -4x squared. And then the next one is, let's see, and we can cross these out when we're done with them. That way we don't get confused, okay, and we don't make mistakes. And here we go. Here's a 6x, and here's a -15x. So both of them are negatives, -6, -15, so that's going to give us a -21x. And then the only thing left is that plus 18, and I don't have anything to combine with him. Okay, so there is your answer. X to the fourth plus 6x cubed minus 4x squared minus 21x plus 18. And there you have it. All right, there, down there at the bottom of that page, page 197, they talk about binomials cubed. Binomials cubed. Well, what is that? Well, what is a binomial? Binomial is two terms. And what is a cube? Well, a cube is times itself 3 times. So if I had 3 cubed, what would that mean? That equals 3 times 3 times 3, or it equals 27. Okay. So a binomial cubed is times itself 3 times. This is just a number cubed, but the idea is when you cube something, you multiply it by itself 3 times. So look at this binomial cubed right here. I have x minus 1 cubed. X minus 1 cubed. Now, what I want to do with this is let's just write it out like I did with this 3 right here. Let's just write it out like this because that might be a little easier for us to see what's going on. So that's going to be x minus 1 times x minus 1 times x minus 1. And I had to write it 3 times. Why? Because it's cubed. So I had to multiply it by itself 3 times. Now, let's take a look at this. Let's look at this like in pieces right here. Look at this piece right here. This piece right here. What is that? Well, that is a FOIL problem. That's binomial. So we can solve this by FOIL. And we don't even need to FOIL it, do we? Because we know the shortcut. Because this is actually a squared right there. That's a binomial times a binomial. That's a binomial squared. So we can just use our little steps there. Do you remember the steps? The steps are square the first term, square the second term, and that kind of goes at the end. And so we'll get a negative 1 times negative 1 is going to be a positive 1. And then the middle term, we had to multiply these. So 1x, negative 1x, times 2. And then we had to double it. What is negative 1x times 2? Negative 2x. Negative 2x goes in the middle. Now, if you don't remember that shortcut, okay, then you go ahead and FOIL it. What do I mean by that? Well, you go ahead and you do this. X times 1, x times x first, outer, inner, and then lasts. You follow the FOIL, and you will get the same thing I just got. Okay, I promise you that. You'll get, if you do it right. I mean, I can't promise you that you're going to get the right answer, but if you do it correctly, you'll get what I just got. And so you FOIL it. Now, if you notice, we did those two. We multiplied those two. So what's left over? Well, we still got this guy left over, so we're just going to bring him down here. Now, I want you to see something. What I can do, and you're thinking right now, you're like, well, when I distribute, I always go this way. Well, let me show you something. We can actually distribute going backwards too. It's not a problem. The other thing that we can do is multiplication is associative. We can change the things, and it's also commutative. And so we can move this around. And so what you can do with this negative 1, if you want to, is you can just move it off to the front. Okay, it's commutative. So it works the same. And commutative, remember, it's just like 3 times 2 is the same as 2 times 3. It's just switching them. And you can do that, no problem. So if we want to make it a little bit easier on us, we don't have to, go backwards on our distributing. We can just move the whole thing to the front. So x minus 1 to the front. Okay? And so we're just switching that around. And that's no problem. And so now we have it in the front where it looks a little bit better to us, and we've used it there in the front before, and so that's fine. All right, let's go ahead now and distribute. So we're going back to doing our multiplication of a binomial times a trinomial. We need to distribute this thing. So x times x squared is going to give us x cubed. X times negative 2x is going to give us negative 2x squared. X times 1 is going to give us positive x or positive 1x. Some of you need to write that 1 there because you're forgetting to add the 1 when you're doing your combining terms. So I'll leave it there for right now. It's not a bad thing to put there. It's just something that you don't need necessarily. All right, next we're going to distribute this negative 1. Well, what happens when you distribute a negative 1? Well, 1 is identity, so negative 1 is a negative identity. So in other words, it just changes all the signs. So when we go here, it just changes that to a negative x squared. When we go here, it changes it to a positive 2x. And when we go here, it changes it to a negative 1. Everything, just the sign just changes. That's the negative 1 principle there. All right. And that's only in multiplication, obviously. In addition, you would be changing the values, but in multiplication, the negative 1 just changes the sign. All right, so here we go. Now we need to combine our like terms. What's a like term with x cubed? I don't see any more x cubed, so just x cubed. Then we would come over here to the negative 2x squared. There's a negative x squared. Those are like terms. What makes them like terms, by the way? I keep saying that, like terms, like terms. What makes it a like term? Well, the x is the same, and the exponent is the same. That's what makes something a like term. Letter the same and exponent the same. All right, so the coefficient can be different, the sign can be different, but the letter has to be the same and the exponent has to be the same. All right, negative 2x squared, negative x squared. Remember, that's a 1 there. And so we're going to have a negative 3x squared. Some of you mess that up because you're forgetting that that's a 1. Okay, that's important. All right, next. 1x and 2x. We're going to add those together and we're going to get a 3x. And then the only thing that's left over is that negative 1 hanging out there. So we'll just pull them down there, and that is our answer. All right. Hope you learned something today. That's all I've got for you. If you missed anything, make sure you go ahead and rewind that real quick and figure out what you missed. We'll see you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.